All right, y'all. So listen, we back again with another video. And as always, I want to start the video off by saying prayers and condolences to the families. We want to send love and light their way. Much, much healing goes out to them. All right. So listen, we back with another video with James Cameron, another interview with James Cameron, and he's going over the fundamental flaw in the design of the Titan submersible. All right. So before we get to the video, if you're new, go ahead and help us out, man. Hit that subscribe button. Also, man, we got to unplug more people out the matrix. So you do that by hitting that like button. Hitting that like button, get the videos out, unplug some more people out, man. They just lost. All right, with that being said, let's get to the video. Check this out.
Joining us right now is James Cameron, diver, explorer, director of The Abyss, a deep-sea thriller, and most famously, of course, Titanic as well as many other great films. James, I appreciate you joining us. Someone who's devoted his life to exploration, as you have in many ways, under the sea. I'm wondering what is going through your mind tonight.
Well, thanks, Anderson. I mean, obviously, we're all kind of heartsick from the outcome of this. And I've been living with it for a few days now, as some of my other colleagues in the deep submergence community. I was out on a ship myself when the event happened on Sunday. The first I heard of it was Monday morning. I immediately got on my network because it's, you know, a very small community in the deep submergence group, and found out some information within about a half hour that they had lost comms and they had lost tracking simultaneously. The only scenario that I could come up with in my mind that could account for that was an implosion, a shockwave event so powerful that it actually...
Doesn't that still like blow y'all mind how this small group of people, and every time I hear that, I just think, why is there only this small group of people that does this or that really knows this stuff to where we have to interview them and get their information that we don't have of our own? You know what I mean? Why is it like that? I've been questioning that ever since I heard another interview with James Cameron. He talked about it. Don't that seem kind of odd to y'all? You know what I mean? And then the fact that he knew before we knew, before he knew, they knew it was over. Implosion. Only likely scenario, they're saying. You know what I mean? I still have my Megalodon, you know what I mean, and the Kraken conspiracy theories out there, but all things are pointing to what a lot of things y'all are saying is pointing towards implosion. So
was an implosion, a shockwave event so powerful that it actually took out a secondary system that has its own its own pressure vessel and its own battery power supply, which is the transponder that the ship uses to track where the sub is. So I was thinking implosion then. That's Monday morning. I got on the horn again with some other people, tracked down some intel that was probably of a military origin, although it could have been research, because there are hydrophones all over the Atlantic, and got confirmation that there was some kind of loud noise consistent with an implosion event. That seemed to me enough confirmation that I let all of my inner circle of people know that we had lost our comrades, and I encouraged everybody to raise a glass in their honor on Monday. Then I watched over the ensuing days this whole sort of everybody running around with their hair on fire search, knowing full well that it was futile, hoping against hope that I was wrong, but knowing in my bones that I wasn't. And so it certainly wasn't a surprise today. And I just feel terrible for the families that had to go through all these false hopes that kept getting dangled, you know, as it played out.
My heart couldn't have took that. You know what I'm saying? Don't get me wrong. I'm gonna, down to the last drop, I'm gonna be hoping and exhausting all efforts as much as anybody, you know, but at the same time, bro, that could straight up give you a heart attack right there, that in itself. You know what I mean? So, sheesh.
That kept getting dangled, you know, as it played out.
I just want to you said it was on Monday that you learned of these listening devices under the water had picked up the sound of an implosion, or what was believed to be an implosion.
Yeah, that's as it came to me. Now that's hearsay, multiple. You know, they were.
He don't want to let on his sources. He had a direct channel or a direct line to somebody to be able to get that type of intel. He don't want to give up his sources right now. I don't blame him, but that's crazy that we couldn't figure that out. And he was able to tap in with somebody real quickly.
As it came to me, now that's hearsay, multiple, I didn't,
Right.
they were credible sources.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
I took that as a factor that I multiplied in with the other factors. And I couldn't think of any other scenario in which a sub would be lost where it lost comms and navigation at the same time and stayed out of touch and did not surface. I was also told, and I don't have confirmation on this, that they were on descent, they were a couple hundred meters above the seafloor, and they dropped their weights. Now, the only way for the ship to know that they had dropped their ascent weights, which would be an emergency abort, is if they had called that in, that they were ascending. So I believe now that they had some warning, that they heard some acoustic signature of the hull beginning to delaminate. An investigation will hopefully eventually show what did happen, because we all need to know as we go forward. The deep submergence community needs to know exactly what happened.
You've made dozens of, just extraordinary deep water expeditions, including more than 30 to the Titanic itself. You've also gone far deeper than the 13,000 feet where the Titanic is. I think you've gone deeper than just about anybody into the ocean. I wrote it into, I forgot the name of the place you went. But
I know this is small, but I keep looking at it trying to figure out, how did they go to the bathroom again? I know that's weird, but I'm sitting here looking at this thing and I'm like, where could they have possibly had a place for you to have privacy to go to the bathroom? This is what, they had like 5 dudes on this thing? Where was there a place for you to properly go relieve yourself? Because I know me, as soon as I get near water, I gotta go. I don't know if it's, I'm getting older, me, bladder a little weak, you know what I mean? But I get, that thing goes in the water, I instantly gotta go. So I'm thinking that, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. That's just my mind just sitting here looking at this thing and seeing all this water.
13,000 feet where the Titanic is. I think you've gone deeper than just about anybody into the ocean. I wrote it into, I forgot the name of the place you went, but the Challenger Deep, which is just extraordinary.
Deep,
You went in your own design. Yeah, you went in your own designed craft that's a submersible that was experimental and didn't go through the sort of the standard safety protocols. But
correct.
The difference is you were not taking passengers on board. Would you ever have taken passengers on board a submersible that had not gone through the standard maritime safety protocols?
No, not at all. I mean, my sub that I went to the Challenger Deep dove safely 3 times deeper than Titanic. We made multiple dives in that sub. That sub was a single seater.
But how are you able to, you're avoiding the question, how are you able to get around not having to have certain things regulated, certified, checked on, maintenance, or whatever it is that you need to go through, the protocols and stuff? How are you able to avoid that? Like that, I think that's a problem here that we need to dive into.
In that sub was a single seater.
Money.
And it was only contemplated that myself and the engineer with whom I co-designed the vehicle would be the only pilots of that sub. And we worked on it for 7 years. We knew every detail of it intimately. I was involved in every phase of the testing. So, I assessed the risks. I understood them very well. And those were risks I was willing to take. I would never take it upon myself to ask someone else to take that type of risk. And if I were designing a multi-seat vehicle where I intended to be the pilot, we'd go through all of the rigorous test protocols and review protocols that you have with, let's say, ABS, which is the American Bureau of Shipping, or DNV, or German Lloyd's, who are the major...
Well, you definitely couldn't go in there if you claustrophobic. Look at that. Any of y'all claustrophobic? Anybody? Just looking at that makes you feel like the walls are caving in on you a little bit and stuff like that. That is crazy.
American Bureau of Shipping, or DNV, or German Lloyd's, who are the major bureaus that class a sub. They call it classing, but it's basically certification. And I think it was unconscionable that this group did not go through that rigorous process.
What is, this was an experimental design. There's no question about it. It's a carbon composite. You can tell us more about what that actually means. I mean, it's the kind of stuff used in spacecraft, but is it designed for deep underwater pressure? And what is the danger of that kind of material in this kind of environment?
It's completely inappropriate for a vessel that sees external pressure. Carbon fiber composites are used very, very successfully for internal pressure vessels, like, let's say, a scuba tank. And you can get 2 or 3 times multiple of what you could get out of steel or aluminum for that type of pressure bottle. But for something that's seeing external pressure, all of the advantages of composite materials go away and all the disadvantages come into play. So if you're using a uniform material like steel or titanium or ceramic or acrylic, you can do computer modeling with a high degree of accuracy and confidence. The second you start doing carbon composite or any kind of composite materials, you're introducing 2 materials that are in contact with each other. The filament itself and then the epoxy matrix that it sits within. And at that point you have degradation failure. So we always understood that this was the wrong material for submersible hulls, because with each pressure cycle you can have progressive damage. So it's
this is why this stuff needs to be inspected, bro. Basically, he just said, without us knowing all of the technical jargon he just spewed at us, basically he just said this thing had no business being in the water. None. Didn't have the right material to go down there and face that type of pressure. It had no business being in the water. Like, how does this even happen? How is somebody even able to do that? And you heard me say earlier, that's my conspiracy theory, is money. When you have a certain amount of money or a certain cachet about who you are and who you know, you're able to get around certain things, is what you're seeing here. I guarantee, like, if somebody was able to pay this and work around and then put others in danger, like that's the scary part. That's the scary part. Right now, they need to put in place some type of law that you cannot travel down unless your submersible has been regulated, has been checked off, has gone through all the proper channels to make sure it's certified. Just like anything else we use. Can't use an extinguisher unless it's been checked properly. Fire departments, they can't go inside without an SCBA that's been checked off and made sure that it's able to use. How is this any different?
With each pressure cycle, you can have progressive damage. So it's quite insidious, because you may have a number of successful dives, which is what happened here, and then have it fail later. If I were diving in a sub that was fully certified, I wouldn't think about it. But even in my own sub, which had a steel hull, I knew that if I dove several 2 or 3 times, it was probably good to go, because you can cycle steel hundreds of times, if not thousands of times. But that's not the case with composites. So it's quite insidious, and that, I think, lulled them into a sense of confidence and led to this tragedy. But these are known things. They're known within the engineering community.
And well, we also want to point out OceanGate's former director of marine operations. He wrote this engineering report in 2018, I think it was. He focused his criticisms on the company's decision to rely on acoustic monitoring the sounds the hull made under pressure, as opposed to a scan of the hull. According to him, the company claimed no equipment existed that could perform that kind of a scan on the 5-inch thick carbon fiber hull.
Yeah.
I know it's difficult to say, obviously, without reading the report, but I'm wondering what you make of that, because it seems like this company was making a big deal about the sensors they had that could, sense a problem with the hull, and if they could sense there was a problem, then they would have time to turn around and go back up. Clearly, they didn't.
It's a bit like saying we have a bit of a poor design for the engine in our jet or our rocket ship, but we have a sensor that will tell us if it's on fire. To me, that's cold comfort.
What? So we was, whoa. Like, this is really, like, if this isn't eye-opening to y'all, it truly is to me, man. This is beyond scary to know that they had their focus in the wrong spot. And then I like how he said, you know, if he, with the material he used on his vessel, James Cameron, he can go out there multiple times and cycle through and keep going, and it's not gonna do anything. But theirs, over time, it's just a matter of time before your thing implodes. How do you not know that?
We have a sensor that will tell us if it's on fire. To me, that's cold comfort, and I think that if you're building a hull where you need to have sensors to tell you that it's failing, in the process of failing, you have no business designing subs or being in that sub. They touted it, I believe, you know, as a good thing, as a safety protocol, but I consider it a bad thing because it sheds a light directly on the fundamental flaw of their design. You have to remember the DNA of this design concept goes back farther. It goes back to the quest to go to the Challenger Deep that I was involved in, obviously. And there was another sub design that was competing with ours at the time that was based on a wound filament composite cylinder with 2 titanium end caps. And I told those guys point blank, you're going to get killed in that thing. And they ultimately never dove it. I literally told the guy who bought the sub when its owner, Steve Fawcett, the famous billionaire, died in a plane crash, and the sub was then purchased by another guy to operate it. And I told him, you're going to die down there if you dive that thing. And I felt very strongly about it. I had nothing to do with OceanGate, and I never tried to warn Stockton Rush of the same thing because I thought maybe they've solved it, you know. But I was pretty opinionated about it at the time, and they had a similar idea of doing acoustic sensors too. They call it delamination when water ingress starts to force the layers of the fibers apart, and theoretically you can hear it. I actually believe they heard it with their ears, not through the sensor system in the last moments of their lives, and that's quite a horrifying prospect.
Man, to know you down there and there's nothing you can do about it. Prayers and condolences to the families, man. But we need to know more about this, man. Imagine what would have happened if this thing continued to be a success and they were able to somehow trim the cost of it down, few grand or something like that. How many people would have been going on that thing? Like, that's probably where they were headed. They probably had talks in the future, making it cost effective so more people could go. This type of stuff scary, man. This type of stuff you need to stay up on top of and know about. You know what I mean? Before somebody convince you to go on something you don't know anything about it. Y'all get at me in the comment section, man. And leave a like so we can unplug more people out the matrix. Well, till next one, I'm gone. Peace.